Hello. Today I'm going to be guiding us through a grounding exercise that's one of my favorites. Now, grounding exercises in general are strategies you can use to help when you're feeling overwhelming emotions or overwhelming stress. It helps to regulate those feelings as well as regulate the physiological reactions you might be having associated with those feelings. So perhaps a shortness of breath, a increase in your heart rate, perhaps more sweating, all of those things can kind of make a situation even harder to deal with. And by grounding, what we're actually doing is taking mindfulness strategies to pay attention to our environment in a way that reminds us that we're actually in a safe space. And so, this is an exercise that I've taught over the years to people, and they find it helpful to do it as a response to times when they're really upset, perhaps after a really difficult day at work or after having an argument with a partner. But it also can be really helpful to do it proactively. So, after I teach this today, what I'm going to encourage you to do is actually take time to practice this on an ongoing basis, ideally once a day, in a way that it becomes more familiar. So the way this works is we're going to be using our five senses. And this exercise is actually referred to as 5-4-3, or sometimes referred to as 5-4-3-2-1. And what we're going to do is recall back to the basic five senses you were taught in grade school of using our sight, our touch, hearing, taste, and smell. And so to start us off, what you're going to do is look around your environment and identify five things you can see. Sometimes people do this rather quickly, so it's just looking and noticing a plant, a kettle, a lamp, things in your room. But you can also do it with a little bit more time. So depending on your situation, if you're at home, if you have space to yourself, I actually encourage you to look at each object and really use your sight for each one. So for example, if you're looking at a pen, you don't just say, okay, a pen, next. But you really want to kind of look at it as if you've never seen it before. So what is the color? What is the shape, the size? Are there any imperfections on it? Are there shadows from a light that you're noticing? And then you pick your next object. So you really want to slow things down, particularly if you're feeling more upset, to notice anything about the object that maybe you didn't notice initially. And then once you feel like you've really seen it, you've really kind of paid attention, then you go to your next object and your next. As you're doing this, you want to be trying to choose things that are rather neutral. So I encourage people not to pick things that bring on a whole high level of feeling. So perhaps, a textbook might then, instead of paying attention to the look and feel of the textbook, your then mind is racing to, I need to be studying more, I need to be thinking about other things. Similarly, even pleasant things like maybe a photo of loved ones can still bring on a strong emotional reaction, particularly if you're already feeling a heightened level of feelings. So instead, we really want to pick objects that are boring, don't have strong kind of connections to other parts of our life, so that you can just pay attention to what the object looks like. Once you've identified and you've paid attention and you've observed the appearance of five objects, you then move to four things that you can touch. If you're home by yourself, you're welcome to kind of get up, you can move around, touch different things, feel the texture, the sensation, the temperature of the object that you're identifying. If you're standing in line somewhere, maybe if you're at work, it may not be as comfortable or may not be practical for you to get up and move around. So I often advise people to still think about things that you can feel. So perhaps you can feel the weight of the shoes on your feet. You can touch your arm and notice the texture of the shirt you're wearing. You can perhaps play with your hair. There's still ways in which you can touch different objects. And again, thinking about texture, temperature, weight, the feeling. Are there parts of the object that are smooth and other parts that are bumpy? Really trying to, again, pay attention as if you've never seen that object before, never touched that object before. Once you've done four things that you can touch, you then move to three things that you can hear. So sometimes this is happening in an area that's really noisy. Maybe there's a lot of different noises, but even if you're home by yourself, perhaps there's no sounds around, You can pay attention to the sound of your own breathing. You can pay attention to the hum of your air conditioner or your heater, depending on the time of year. And you really want to, again, be intentional of what does that sound like? Is it consistent? Is it piercing? Is it a rumble of sorts? So really trying to pay attention to the noise. And from there, once you've done 3 things that you can hear, you're going to do 2 things that you can smell, and then 1 thing that you can taste. And so, again, depending on the circumstances, if you're home, you're welcome to kind of walk around, actually find things that are nice to smell or find something nice to taste. But perhaps you can even just taste, the lingering taste of coffee on your breath, or you can smell, the scent of the shampoo that you have on your hair. So these are some strategies. Now, sometimes people will skip one. So perhaps if you're lying in bed at night and lights are out, you're not able to look around and notice things you can see. That's okay. You can move to the other 4. Perhaps if you're, outside of COVID, if you're standing on a crowded subway platform, maybe you don't want to smell certain scents. That's okay. You don't need to do all of them, but even just doing any of these, taking a time to kind of slow it down, to really pay attention to your environment is a really helpful way to, again, regulate how you're feeling emotionally and physically. I've had people before describe this almost as if, at a time I was feeling really stressed. It felt like I was kind of swimming through rapids in a river, and this just gave me a moment to step out onto the shore and to catch my breath. Now, the issues, the conflict, the disagreement, the trouble that you may be dealing with may still be present, but by practicing this, what you're doing is giving yourself a moment to kind of calm down so that you may be able to think a bit more clearly, to problem solve, to ask for help, to do something that can help, right? And again, as I said at the start of this video, if you want, you're welcome to do this after the fact at a time when you're feeling overwhelmed or distressed, but that may not always be convenient, right? There may not be a time if you're a surgeon and you're in the OR, you may not be able to take 4 minutes to kind of practice this exercise, right? So what I do encourage is if you're interested in this, if you're curious at all, to consider actually practicing this ahead of time on a daily basis. So build it into your routine. Perhaps when you're brushing your teeth in the morning, you can kind of practice this. Perhaps when you're walking to work in the morning, you can kind of do this exercise. So find a way where you can practice this more than once. And then when you are feeling really stressed and overwhelmed, you don't need to think back and say, oh, what was that instruction? What was that video saying, that I watched months ago? It's more of a habit that you're doing on a consistent basis. So it's that much easier to kind of implement it when you're feeling upset. So I encourage you to give this a try. I encourage you to take a moment for yourself, and I encourage you to let us know if this is helpful, right? Figure out a way to make this your own. Feel free to be creative about it. You can add extra challenges. Maybe you want to find objects that are blue, or you want to listen to specific music, and you can kind of create a way to kind of have this be something that helps you with all the many stresses that you're dealing with on a day-to-day basis. Thank you for watching.